A gigantic order from the Chief Justice Chandrachud-led Supreme Court bench on electoral bonds, striking them down as unconstitutional and asking the State Bank of India to immediately stop issuing them. Not just that, the Supreme Court has ordered that all the details of who has given how much money to which party should be made public and should be placed on the Election Commission website in the next 3 weeks. Will the Modi government accept this order, or could it consider an ordinance? We're waiting to see what that reaction might be. But there is no doubt that this is a big, big intervention on political funding. Now, remember, all political parties have been actually receiving money via electoral bonds, but the BJP, of course, has been receiving the maximum amount of funding. In fact, more than 57% of bonds issued have been given to the BJP. The Congress comes a second, and surprise, surprise, it's a regional party, the Trinamool Congress, that stands at number 3. What impact might this have on politics, on the political discourse? Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we look at this big Supreme Court intervention ahead of elections 2024. Subhash Garg, who has really been the man in the hot seat when the bonds were first notified, is with us. He's the former Finance Secretary of India. He also has a very riveting book out called We Also Make Policy. Do please pick it up if you haven't. Also joining us is Sunil Alag, a well-known business leader and thought leader. Thank you, Mr. Alag. Always a pleasure. Also joining us is Senior Advocate Sanjay Hegde. Welcome to the program, sir. We're also very pleased to have with us General Anil Verma. He's with the Association of Democratic Reforms. The ADR was one of the petitioners in the Supreme Court, so it's a big win for them today. Tehseen Poonawala, analyst and Congress supporter, is with us. Asif Bhamla, who is, of course, a BJP spokesperson, is with us as well. I want to start by playing just a little excerpt from that very important judgment. This is the Chief Justice earlier delivering the operative verdict that is going to change how political funding is done in India. Take a look.
As amended by Section 11 of the Finance Act 2017, are violative of Article 19(1)(a) and unconstitutional. And B, the deletion of the proviso to Section 182(1) of the Companies Act, permitting unlimited corporate contributions to political parties, is arbitrary and violative of Article 14. We consequently issue the following directions. A, the issuing bank shall herewith stop the issuance of electoral bonds.
Okay, that's just the operative moment when those bonds were actually struck down. Let me start getting reactions. Mr. Garg, before the politics takes over, I must get you to respond. You were Economic Affairs Secretary when these bonds were notified. You've captured in your book the resistance to it from various institutions, the Election Commission, Urjit Patel as RBI governor. You were eventually convinced of the need for these bonds. Today, after the Supreme Court judgment, what do you have to say as someone who initially looked at the bonds with suspicion, then were convinced that they were better than other available systems of funding? What do you say today, sir?
So, Barkha, I see this as a triumph of idealism over pragmatism. The judgment definitely is based on high principles of the constitutional morality and disclosures. However, in practice, this will work out to be the way which we feared, that this will bring the country back to pre-2018 days of the political funding, which is not going to go away for the realpolitik reasons, to the earlier system of shell companies and the cash funding. So that is the consequence of, as I said, triumph of idealism over pragmatism. In terms of the disclosure of the past contributions made through electoral bonds, my reading of the details available so far suggest that while the details about each of the bond will come into the open space now, and which company sort of purchased how much and which political party received how much. However, the connection between the company and the political party may still not come out in the open because of the fact that each of the bond the details are to be disclosed in terms of the amount, who purchased, but not to whom it was given, because that detail is not available with the SBI. And secondly, the bond which is identifiable, this is not disclosed publicly, but each bond carries a sort of hidden number. So only by that hidden number you can match that who purchased and who received, and that number is not to be disclosed. So I don't think the details of matching between the companies and the political parties would become sort of available anytime soon.
So, Mr. Garg, you think that all this expectation that in 3 weeks the country will find out which party which corporation give which party how much money, ये निकल के नहीं आएगा, ये इतना आसान नहीं है, despite the Supreme Court directive. Okay.
That's correct.
Before I open this up, Mr. Garg, I remember from earlier interviews, you have argued that anonymity was central to the working
Yes.
of this bond. And today you have seen the Supreme Court has struck down. It has said that anonymity is unacceptable. What do you say to that?
That I said, this is exactly what idealistic approach as well as or versus the pragmatism is. The fact that the BJP, which is the largest party and is ruling in the center for quite some time, and most of the states as well, received 57% or 60% of the total contributions only. I don't think this is excessively disproportional funding going to the BJP. The relationship is very clear that whichever is the ruling party, and most in case of the states, receives the political funding. These donations are not made for any. I don't think the argument which has been used in the Supreme Court judgment that this can be used for influencing policy. I don't think they are, the corporates here are influencing policy by electoral bonds. They are actually using these for getting their own sort of little businesses and orders and other things cleared up. So that will continue. That's not going to stop. The only thing is that this will now go underground.
So this is very interesting. Let me bring in Sanjay Hegde. Mr. Garg actually argues that we're still not going to find out. Sunil, by the way, we have your phone, we have you upside down, but let me get to Sanjay Hegde in the meantime. Sanjay, Mr. Subhash Garg argues that despite the Supreme Court directive, the connection between the company and the political party is not going to come out as in a linear way. Secondly, he calls it the triumph of idealism over pragmatism, pushing political funding under the table. That's his argument. You've been closely sort of associated with this case as well. It's a big win for you. So congratulations to you and General Verma here. You're on the winning side. But how do you respond to the 2 points made by Subhash Garg that even now the country is not really going to be able to join the dots between who gave how much money to whom? Sanjay.
Well, that's what Mr. Garg believes. But you see, ultimately, it's a question of data points. Yeah. You will, and please trust me, Indians are pretty good masters of data science. So there is going to be a lot of matching going on. You can take the data about who bought how many bonds at what point of time. You could possibly then go to the company affairs websites, check each company which bought those bonds. And then you put it against a timeline, lots of stories will by themselves come out. You don't really, that last bit as to whom they paid, that also there will be ways that data scientists will unravel it. Now, the point about idealism, we are a nation under a constitution. Constitutional ideals are not there merely to be written in a constitution and not implemented. It is one man, one vote, one value. If you have enormous amounts of dark, opaque money sloshing around the system and tilting your democracy, ultimately, more than the courts, the people are going to ask, do we really live in a democracy where each of our votes has the same value? So that I think that the Supreme Court has stood up for constitutional values. It's not mere idealism.
What I think something we should, two very differing perspectives right at the top of the program. And I'll come to General Verma and Sunil Alagh in just a moment. Quick political reactions. Tehseen, the Congress is crowing, gloating, saying that the BJP is on the back foot. But the Congress also receives money through this route. The Congress just doesn't receive as much money as the BJP. But, if you look at the data, and this is Rahul Gandhi's tweet earlier, Narendra Modi ko ki भ्रष्ट नीतियों का एक और सबूत आपके सामने है, so on. The fact is, if you look at the data, 57% versus 10%, right? That's how it stacks up. 57% of bonds have gone to the BJP, 10% to the Congress, after that the Trinamool Congress. The Congress has not stood on a moral high horse and said, I'm not going to take the money, right? So today, how does the Congress
No,
claim
come on now again.
Today, how does the Congress claim political victory?
They can claim political victory, one, because since, and the tweet of 18 November 2019 of Rahul Gandhi ji, where he said very categorically that this is absolutely unacceptable, electoral bonds. Yes.
So why did they take why did the Congress take money?
Because how else do you get the funding? So they stood on a matter of principle that this is wrong. They stood against it. But how else do you get the funding? Because a lot of corporates, now let me explain a couple of things that Mr. Garg said, and let me oppose that. Number one, tomorrow, and with respect to Mr. Garg or to anybody, you may say, look, free speech and liberty is just is good, is idealism, but it's not practical. But that's constitutional values. Number two, how does the political party come to know the number is secret? Let's assume hypothetically I'm the CEO of a company, and I were to give, let's assume hypothetically Mr. Garg is a politician and his political party 100 crore rupees through this electoral bond. Now I go to Mr. Garg and I say, here is the electoral bond number which I have purchased, and therefore, and this is the 100 crores that will tally in your accounts. So now Mr. Garg's political party knows the 100 crores has come from Tehseen, and I have a quid pro quo for whatever work I need to do. More importantly, there's anonymity. Third, what Mr. Garg and the finance ministry did not address is the problem of black money does not get solved, because shell companies can be formed, or foreign companies can form entities in India through a web of other companies, because you're also taken away the percentage of how much donation it could give. So I know personally of many loss-making companies that have actually given money. I'm not going to get into which political party fought. I know that in one of the states, one of the largest states in India, and this is where the income tax rate had actually happened with the wrong income tax rate, some of the corporates were giving through electoral bonds the money to the political party and were taking cash in return from the political party. Now, these are things that it happened in a practical world. So they would give a political party an electoral bond, say for 1 crore hypothetically, and they would take 70 lakhs back. So the political party actually got the money through a white entry, and the person got the cash back. So this also happened because it was tax free.
I understand. I am only making the
none of this solved the problem that Mr. Arun Jaitley or the government claimed to be. Why did the other political parties take it? Look, what else do you do? They don't have. You already have a system that's lopsided against the opposition. I don't want to get into the negativities. They don't get the kind of funding the BJP gets, and now you've closed one more avenue. And this should have actually closed down in 2018, 2019. It took the Supreme Court, the Honorable Supreme Court, 5-6 years. Imagine what else would the political parties do for another 5-6 years if they don't get the funding. This was wrong. They stood up against it, but there is no choice. You also have to live in a practical world.
Okay.
What do you tell a donor who's giving you money?
Okay. Brief reaction from Subhash Garg before I go to General Verma, Sunil Alagh, and Asim Bhamla. Quickly, Mr. Garg. Subhash Garg. Yes.
So this is not correct to say that there are tax concessions attached to the electoral bonds. In fact, today, the electoral bond funding is not even allowed as an expenditure. So the tax concessions are not there. I don't have any issues with what has been said earlier. But the fact of the matter is that the bonds, you can perhaps, using the IT abilities of the country, connect the dot, but this will be quite difficult and it may not be authentic. If the Supreme Court had wanted actually to make this absolutely transparent, I don't know, they might have missed it for some reason. The direction could have been to the SBI that for each of the bond, you connect that who sort of received it, but who bought it, and who deposited it. That information is available only with the SBI. Right.
So you're saying at the moment, what are we going to find out? Or at the moment, if the information is published on the website, what will be published according to you, Mr. Garg?
You will have the purchaser name, the bond amount.
Yeah.
It is the information which will come from the purchaser side, and from the recipient side again, the amount of the bond and which party received it, not from whom you received it and not to whom you have given it. That information is not required to be given as per the order.
Okay, got it. One
second, Barkha. Just
one
second.
Very
what
quickly.
Mr. Garg, very quickly. What Mr. Garg did not answer, like a sleight of hand, is assuming I gave 100 crores to the BJP or the Congress. Let's be okay. And I'm a CEO for a favor, and I purchase bond A1. I can now go to Rahul Gandhi ji or JP Nadda ji, whoever, and tell them A1 is my bond, and they would know A1's given them 100 crore rupees. Now I go to them and I say, look, I need this land, change of land use, or I need this industrial permission. This does not solve the transparency. Now, second thing, he also does not tell. He says, look, you know who's given the money on A date. You also, the political party knows who's received the money on A date. Both these information will now be in public domain. So on 1st January, if A has given money to a political party, you collate it. 1st January, who got the money, you immediately know who's got it. So Sanjay is right. You can actually find out now who's given it when these details come in public domain. And I'm telling you this, Barkha, as a prediction, the government won't allow it to happen. The government will find a loophole to prevent this from happening.
Well, I'd be curious to see, and Sanjay can tell us about this later, whether the government would consider an ordinance. And I was hoping to find out from Mr. Bhamla, who I don't know where he's gone, but hopefully he'll rejoin the program. Sunil, we keep losing you, so let me try and get a comment in from you before I go to General Verma.
No, you know, as far as Mr. Jaitley was concerned, I asked him, why are you doing this? Look, in America, for instance, when you give money on any Democrats collect, so do Republicans. They are mature enough not to go and fight against anybody who's given Republicans if a Democrat president comes. Or if a Democrat president comes in, then you don't go against the Republicans. Now, they are mature enough, not when they form the government, but when they give the money, there's no question. Of course, there's a quid pro quo. There's no question of anyone saying, I've given you money and nothing is going to come up. Now, the question that remains in most developed countries is just that. Therefore, it's a question of idly understanding that earlier, every company was scared, so they gave both the parties officially. But the cash amount that they gave to each person, there is no, and what Jaitley wanted to do was step one. Step two was when the country becomes mature enough to take into account, are you trying to tell me that you give a Democrat a plate?
Okay, we lost you there, but I think the point that you were making, Sunil, was that of course there's no such thing as a free lunch. And that's the point that Mr. Garg, I think, is trying to make, General Verma, that political funding, whether it done earlier through cash, whether it done under the table, or whether done through electoral bonds, as long as there's big money, big corporate money, bankrolling your elections, there is going to be a conflict of interest. It's inherent in the way elections are funded. Now, there are those who believe that electoral bonds, people like yourselves who petitioned the Supreme Court, people like Sanjay Hegde who fought in the Supreme Court, there are those who believe that this adds one more layer of opacity. And there are those who believe that realistically, this is the better way than all bad ways. None of these are great ways. That is Subhash Garg's argument. General Verma, your thought, and then we'll come to Asif Bhamla. General Verma.
Okay, so see, the sense which I get, it is practicality versus ethics, morality, corruption, lawbreakers becoming lawmakers, and all that. So, well, we are idealists, I would say, and we are trying to bring transparency, accountability in the functioning of the political parties, and we will continue to do that. And as some people have mentioned, the actual source of the original donor, the first guy who's bought the thing, we will never know, because it's a bearer bond. It could have passed so many hands. We don't know. And what type of fund was used in the initial thing, and what Tehseen was saying, all that thing is very much possible. But the point is that the old system is still functional, where all donations over 20,000 rupees, you had to give complete details: who the donor was, how was the payment made, through the bank, online, or whatever. That system is still there. So what was stopping from people, like what Tehseen's argument was, that Congress, what is a disadvantage, there was no other choice, so we had to buy electoral bonds and all that. Whereas I remember in the 2019 manifesto of Congress, they had said we'll scrap the scheme the moment we come to power, and then you go on accepting money. So then if you are so good or clean, then you say who's given the money. Tell your donors, please, we'll disclose your details. Are you? So then the worry is they might not donate to you.
Yeah.
That's the worry.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy thing. I understand that. But the point is that as per the Constitution, the Article 19A, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court, that is what we were asking, that the common man, the citizen, the common voter has a right to know who is funding the political parties.
I think you made an excellent point for the opposition, saying that if they had said that they would scrap the scheme, so why did they take money from it? Tehseen says, what was our choice? Asif Bhamla, we've been waiting for the BJP reaction. We don't really have an official response from the government yet. Is this verdict going to be accepted and respected and implemented? Or is there going to be a consideration of an ordinance?
If required to, there would be consideration of an ordinance, but as you rightly mentioned, the BJP has still formally not announced its version. So even me as a spokesperson, I was told that there was a different debate on elections. So I was on that arrangement. But this topic has come up. But I was not fully prepared for this discussion. But of course, since the Supreme Court has given its judgment, it's definitely a very, very serious judgment. It definitely is calling for greater accountability and transparency, which we obviously would, as a political party, with the biggest national political party of the country, welcome this move. And if required, the ordinance, that would be looked at and decided in the course of action. But coming to why this was brought into action, there was the need to curb the flow of the cash. You see, the monetary funding that used to come in terms of in terms of black money, and we could see tons and tons of currency notes. You see, that was found in the opposition's camps, or even in the ruling camps. You see, so there were notes that were found during election times and stuff. So to bring that and to channelize this and to bring this on the banking ambit was the thought, for which this move was done. And now if the Supreme Court deems fit that there has to be electronic bond, we will go ahead. I'm sure the party would do a strategy on that.
I won't be my usual argumentative self with you, because in fairness to you, the BJP, the party, is still to take an overall position. So I appreciate that you're still here despite that, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the government decides to do. Sanjay Hegde, you wanted to come in? Go ahead, Sanjay Hegde. Yes, Sanjay.
See, is that you can issue an ordinance where a court finds flaws in the lawmaking, sometimes in procedure, sometimes that the right legislature has not passed it, but where a series of laws has been struck down as unconstitutional. I don't see how you can directly bring in an ordinance. The legislature is not a Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has already held way back in the 2000s in the Kaveri reference that you cannot directly overrule a judgment. You can't say, I don't like this judgment, I overrule it. You have to go to each and every flaw constitutionally. Sometimes it's a procedural flaw. But here there are sections which have been struck down as manifestly arbitrary. So you may not be able to bring back an electoral bond scheme again. You may come out with a fresh formulation, a new package.
Technically, they could pass a new law in Parliament. Am I wrong, Sanjay? Technically. Coming to you, Mr. Garg,
yes,
yeah.
Yeah, technically they could, instead of electoral bonds, they have some other donation system. That's a different thing altogether. But to directly say that the Supreme Court has said electoral bonds is unconstitutional, I am going to overrule it, here is my ordinance. No, we are not a government by decree. That's not what the Constitution permits.
Subhash Garg, do you agree? We are not a government by decree?
Sure, you can't directly overrule. Supreme Court has the power of review of every law, which it has done in line with that. This violates the constitutionality of it, both Article 14 and the Article 19(1). And therefore, you just can't bring same law again saying that, no, this Supreme Court judgment is overruled. What it can do, the government, you see, there are two basic arguments which the Supreme Court has used. One is the right of information of voter about the political funding. And the second one is that the restrictive arrangement for the corporate funding in terms of that the loss-making companies cannot do it, or you can't make contribution more than 7.5% of your profits, which was earlier the arrangement in Section 182 and 183 of the Constitution. Those have been struck down. So if you want to come up with an alternative law, you will have to address these two things. Number one, you can't hide this information, who is giving to whom. That information has to be given. And second, you can't make the corporates provide unlimited contributions.
So you're saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, that even if there's to be a new law to get around what the Supreme Court has ordered, both you and Sanjay believe that anonymity will be very difficult now to bring into that law because that facet has been held to be unconstitutional. Am I right? Sanjay, you want to add to that? Yeah. Sorry.
Barkha, that actually distinguishes the electoral bond scheme with the other scheme which is still there in the company law.
So right. In your opinion, electoral bonds cannot be, even in your opinion, Mr. Garg, electoral bonds cannot be revived through an ordinance.
Exactly in the form in which it works.
In this form. In this
and
form.
You can only revive in the form in which the other provision already exists. So if it becomes the same, then it loses the distinctiveness.
Then it's like a cash donation. All right. Sunil, while we have you, you wanted to complete your point about there being no free lunch. You want to complete that point? Yes.
No, because anywhere in the world, because the audience has become, and so has the government become a little more mature, that look, when you give money towards Democrats or Republicans, I was just saying that, look, when you spoke to Mr. Jaitley there, it's not the question of you get a Democrat president, they're going after all the Republicans. But there's a quid pro quo. Where's the guy of giving you the money if you're not going to listen to him later on, where you have all this collection? So therefore, what was one step on the electoral bonds was, earlier there was one system, as Mr. Garg said, but Mr. Jaitley, when he became finance minister, introduced this as a step till you don't become mature enough to deal with it. Then it's one step forward. That's all there is. But which country there's no quid pro quo? Whoever gives and gives it to the party or the prime minister that you expect to win.
Yes, but the difference, Sunil, the difference is in America, where I am right now, there is an open declaration of which side you're on. It's not opaque. You know what the super PAC, you know who's a Democrat, you know which corporate backs the Republicans, you know who backs the Democrats.
But they don't go after.
This is opaque. This is opaque. This is opaque.
No, 1 second. This is opaque. It was even more opaque. So therefore, before you become transparent, the people have to become, and the politicians have to become. Look, in
Okay.
America, wherever you are, look, it's not a question of me giving Democrats. The Democrat becomes a president. He is going to answer to all the people who gave him money, no? There's no question. But he's not going to go after all those who gave Republicans. Here, the fear was that, look, if the BJP government comes in and you give Congress, Congress will go after you. And if BJP will go after you. And if you give it to BJP and the Congress government comes in and they will go after you. So until the political parties and the people become mature, this was one step in reducing the opaqueness. Earlier, you gave money, okay, 1 lakh, in all the parties officially, but you gave a lot unofficially.
So this
here
debate,
was the electoral bonds.
Yeah, got it. You're making the same argument that Subhash Garg is making. Tehseen,
Yeah,
you
I
wanted
know
to
that.
comment.
I know for a fact.
Okay.
The politicians and the people don't become mature. Tehseen is saying quid pro quo. Of course, there's a quid pro quo. It's all over the world. When you give money to a president and he comes into power, he has to return it.
I believe General Verma. Sorry, Tehseen, I'm going to let General Verma have one word. I believe that I think Sunil and Subhash Garg are doing a sort of reality check on how politics works. I accept that, but I think the voter has the right to know who's funding whom. We have the right to know which party is bankrolling, which corporation is bankrolling which party. Do you not agree, Sunil? General Verma, do you want to take Sunil and Subhash Garg's point? Ki pehle to isse bhi, it was worse. It was under the table. It was, black money being laundered. This at least is the system, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I may just say, firstly,
Yes.
the Supreme Court has said, and they've taken 3 months to give this judgment. The argument put forth by Tushar Mehta in the court that isse black money kam ho gaya, isse cash ka wo kam ho gaya. Supreme Court found no basis for that. One. Secondly, the point made by the BJP spokesperson, mountains of cash are still being found from 2018 onwards, aren't they? You are taking 40 counting machines and all that. So where is the difference? That what happened to demonetization? Black money khatam ho gaya?
Yeah.
Everything is still going on. So let's real politics
No.
and being practical and all that is very fine. Good for the corporates, good for the bureaucrats. Oh, what about the common man?
No, it's good for everyone. First and foremost, the common man doesn't get to vote. He votes for BJP or the Congress. And whether the money comes from any one of the two parties is the congressman concerned, as long as the person that he's voting for comes into power. Now, what do they do with that money?
Yeah,
then you agree with that or kya? Look, in America, you think the average man is even worried? Or in England or anywhere else, is he actually worried? No, he's not.
No, but then you're saying
Sunil comes in.
Okay, General Verma, respond quickly. Yeah, General Verma.
Sunil, don't compare American population with Indian population, please. Yeah.
No, it's one step till you don't become mature enough.
No.
Arey bhai, mature. I'm not comparing. But I'm saying,
of course you are comparing.
You are
comparing, sir. You are comparing.
I'm just saying, till the maturity doesn't come in, that's what you have to do. And earlier it was more than what it is now.
Okay, can I step in? Can I step in? Let's look ahead. Tehseen, General Verma had a very sharp question for both you and Asif Bhamla. For you, the question was, the Congress manifesto said, we'll scrap this scheme. But you have continued, the party you support has continued to take money through this scheme. Basically, there is something on which all political parties seem to be covertly united. Yahan se paisa aa raha hai, wahan se paisa lo. Jitna wo opaque kar sakte ho funding, usko opaque rehne do. Quickly, Tehseen. Hang on, Tehseen, please unmute Tehseen. Tehseen, you're muted at your end. Please unmute.
No, I'm not muted my end.
Now we can hear.
Okay,
now we can hear you.
Wait,
Yeah. Okay.
So, this argument actually, look, the Congress party is also committed to all political parties coming under the RTI, right?
Yeah.
However, they have not put out their RTI because there is no legislation. So yes, by nature, politicians will want to seize power. That's the nature of politics. By nature, politicians will want to. And therefore, you have a need for legislation. Otherwise, why do we even have a need for legislation? Just let's run on morality. We don't run on morality. Therefore, we have a need for legislation. So same like the RTI, where the Congress says, look, all political parties must come under the RTI, but they don't put out all the information under the RTI. And I say, why don't they put it out? But there is a practical problem there. But this argument has me very worried that quid pro quo is okay. I'm a corporate. I do business, right, Barkha? It's not okay. What happens in America, and I think General will bear me out or Sanjay will bear me out, is those who donate via lobbyists talk about talk about policies, and it's okay to go to a government and talk about a policy. It's not okay to go to a government and say, hey, I'm giving you 100 crores, so you can give me the land in Noida and change the land use in Noida, or change the land use in Gurgaon. There's a marked distance. That is bribery, and you cannot. And I really respect corporates. I am one. I invest, but that's not right. I can talk about policy. So I can go to the telecom minister, I can go to the railway minister, I can say, hey, let's open up railways. It's not okay to say, let's open up railways, but give me the Mumbai-Delhi railway sector and I'm paying you 500 crores to your party, so I run a railway exclusively. That's bribery. That affects the common man. Now, you may laugh or smile about and say, hey, that's practicality and how it works in India. It's not correct, and that's constitutionally wrong. So we should talk about policies. One more thing. It's very easy to say that, look, the population or the common man in India is not mature, and therefore Mr. Jaitley waited for people to be mature. Just hear me out. The elite in India, or the politicians, the elite in India, the absolute elite, the corporate, the 1% in India. How many of them, like the Americans, have the guts to take on the ruling government, either side, whether in state government or the central? So they're also not mature. So this is a quid pro quo for everybody involved. Everyone's having fun. That's unacceptable. In an America, and Elon Musk will take on a Joe Biden, and
that's
that
the
doesn't happen
point.
in India.
That is the point, which is
so
where
you call others immature. You call others immature.
I am with Sunil Alag up to the point that there is no clean money, no free lunch, but the voter has the right to know what might be influencing policy, who is tilted, which way. We have the right to know. All right, we have 3 minutes left. I'm going to give everyone a last word. Asif Bhamla, quickly, 30 seconds.
As I mentioned earlier also, I am still not very much aware about the party stand. I shall await that. I have not informed my party that I'm going for this debate because I was not aware about the subject of this. I don't want to do anything.
Well, thanks
but since we welcome this decision of the Supreme Court, and we will definitely, the party will definitely come out on a broader, mindset, on a greater outlook, and we will come back with that.
Fair enough. General Verma, last comments.
After the two judgments of the selection of election commissioners and the EVMs, we are very happy. 3 cheers for Supreme Court.
3 cheers for Supreme Court. That's interesting at a time when so much debate around the judiciary. Today, I think the judiciary has silenced a lot of people who have questioned its capacity for decision making that sometimes contradicts the government. Sunil Alag, last thoughts.
Good thing is there that the opposition parties will normally comment against the judiciary also for taking decisions. At least they now are not saying this, that this is also done by the BJP. So
Sunil Alag.
See, corruption at a level takes place no matter whether it's the BJP government or the Congress and government or anybody. Corruption will take place regardless. So as far as I'm concerned, ये मामला जी 1 second आपने बोल दिया ना.
मुझे 10 seconds और देना बाद में. Sorry.
अच्छा, हाँ. Sunil, you make your point quickly.
So all I'm saying is that look, earlier it was one form. Now it's reduced it. Now, if this is going off, we are going back to the old system.
Yeah. So are we going back? Got it.
Carry on.
Got it. Sanjay Hegde. Sanjay, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. An illustration I gave to the Supreme Court was Ram Jethmalani demonstrating how 1 crore was fitted into a suitcase and given to the then Prime Minister. This was the Harshad Mehta days.
Yeah.
I said that now you did not need a suitcase. With an electoral bond, a mere envelope was enough.
That's quite a metaphor. That's quite a metaphor. Subhash Garg?
I think two things to watch for. Number one, elections are coming. How the political funding will come in times to come, next 2 3 months, would be interesting to watch. And secondly, if and when the connection between corporates and the political parties for the donations, 16,000 crores made, are available, what are the interesting revelations and the connections which and the consequences which might. So I think these are the two interesting things, but ultimately one is left a little sad because I see reverting back to the days of the shell companies and the cash donations.
All right, the debate continues over how to clean up how elections are funded. But for now, the Supreme Court is quite clear. The bonds and the anonymity principle are unconstitutional. And I think what we can all agree on is the story now shifts to 3 weeks from now when details are furnished on the Election Commission website. Can the dots be joined? Will we know which corporation give which party how much money? And then there will be questions raised about quid pro quo that Sunil says is part of real politics. But I would still say the voter has the right to access that information. Leaving it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Take care. Have a great evening.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.